made more sense once the new character was introduced, and it was like, oh, okay, this was always going to happen because he breathed the fire. But even through the fire breath, it's like, oh yeah, but Big Z is so big and so Z that he still manages to slash you in such a way that you die without any death rolls, without anything that we knew of. That was the other thing, is that we were not privy to any death saves. We weren't. So that felt like Calvin Ball. Like, oh yeah, I mean you did what you were gonna do, but it doesn't matter. He still digs in and kills you before.
What you're about to hear is the ramblings of us going over our previous session. Welcome to Natural 2, I guess I should say. That's the first thing we usually say. It is very impromptu and a lot more of the raw communication that James and I have after our games. And I think it might be interesting to expose that. So whatever you listen to next is that.
It's a very au naturel too. Even more naturaler than you're used to. So a little avant-garde, and tell us what you think in the comments. Gotcha. Like and subscribe.
So I know that, like, out of everybody, you're probably the one who hates seeing behind the curtain the most.
Yeah, that's
But
probably true.
can I give you a little bit of what happened and then get your perspective on it, even though it might ruin some of your
Yeah, it's
immersion?
fine.
Okay.
And it's, and talking about, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So basically, I'll give you the very, like, cut and dry chain of events. So we ended that session where Sven was kidnapped, and I didn't go out of my way, but I kind of prepared in the back of my mind that if the party got ambushed and lost, this was something I knew the goblins were going to do, is probably try and take the ones that looked like females prisoner and go from there, right? And that way, like, if the caravan got attacked while the party was away, then Lindis would have been savable, and that could have been interesting. When Sven and her got kidnapped, I was like, okay, it's reasonable that they don't know what to do with him, so I can still work with that. When you got knocked unconscious and they couldn't figure it out, I thought that was pretty fucking funny. But anyway, so we end the session with Sven and Linus being captured, you guys being beaten the fuck up, and Thomas being the only one there. And I asked the party, like, okay, what is your immediate reaction? And it wasn't, oh shit, we're gonna rally as quick as we can. I'm just gonna throw Braynoon and Quinn on some horses and we're gonna take off. It's like, okay, we're gonna wait for them to get back up. We're gonna get ready and we're gonna leave. I'm like, okay, that gives me a rough time frame of figuring things out. So then I go to Seth privately throughout the week, and I'm like, all right, if you are with the goblins for this period of time and this happens, what do you do? If you're with them for this period of time and this happens, what do you do? So it's basically just a series of, like, depending on how long it takes for the party to get to you, what is your reaction to such events? Some of them being, if you wake up from the daze and you have an opportunity to try and get away or leave a trail or attack or get out of your bounds, like, what would you attempt to do, basically? So the first one was him, like, waking up in that campsite. He nearly died to his fucking broken rib, which is a whole other fucking thing. I kept having him do various roles. It's just another thing that, like, I think the party missed out on, is that all of this stuff was rolled for, as far as, like, what D&D fairness subscribes to. And so, like, going into that session, I was like, here is your timeline of events, because I didn't know how quickly you guys were going to get there. And the discussion we ended up having, because me and him actually hopped on a call in the middle of the week, is worst case scenario, if they get you all the way back to their cave and all these things happen, Sven is probably going to go through some pretty fucking traumatizing shit, because he had made the decision to try and offer himself up instead of Lindis. Like, I gave him the choice of letting him basically have their way with Lindis and leaving Sven mainly alone, or him trying to pull the attention, which he did. And so following that, I had him do a bunch of wisdom saving throws to see how he handled it, and rolled incredibly poorly. And so then that's when I got a little bit out of, like, the immersion of the game, and I was like, okay, Seth, do you really want to play a victim, traumatized, like, broken man? Is that going to be fun for you? And he's like, not only is that probably not fun, I don't really know if I can. I was like, cool, that's totally understandable. What's the solution? And kind of what I offered him is either Sven is dead when they show up, which I think probably wouldn't have played out all that well, or Sven is like mentally and physically like will's broken, um, and like showcasing that to the party so that they kind of see why he's dying before he dies, which was my attempt. Or you guys do save him, but then we write him off because he never recovers. That was like the three branching paths you guys kind of could have gone down depending on what you did. And so I told him that. I also told him that without revealing to him, because I wanted to also potentially surprise him, that the party like got their fucking shit in gear and got to the goblins before they even got to the cave. We could have just saved Sven and just pulled him right back in. I would told him to go put Primarch back on the fucking shelf. So all those options were there. The things that were predefined as like me and Seth played a game, and then you guys decided what result we had. I guess that makes sense. So again, that's the long and short of it. Is that was the process that took place, but I could see why it felt weird or forced or unnatural in the general flow of D&D because you guys were just kind of seeing again what felt like railroads. Like no matter what you did, this was going to happen or this was planned. Especially when Primarch got introduced at the end, and Thomas was like, "Oh, okay, I see how it is. Like, all my emotions are fake." Which my intention of introducing him at the end was letting Seth, like a thing to do besides dying, I suppose. But yeah, so that's the whole thing that happened. I'm curious, would you have handled it differently? Do you think I did something wrong, or I should have tried something else, or yeah?
Well, it's speculation at this
Mm-hmm.
point, but um, hindsight being hindsight, I think if the rest of the group had been aware that this side game had taken place,
Mm-hmm.
and so that things were happening during the chase,
Mm-hmm.
because I apologize if it was like posted right there in black and white in the Discord and I just didn't catch it for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't clear to me that you guys had actually gotten together to do that.
Yeah,
Or
I
the
think.
extent to which that you had gotten together to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if maybe it would have been nice if the rest of the group had known that like stuff's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Sven in the penalty box waiting for us to arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that every circumstance is a little different or a lot different, but depending on the circumstances, I think we can say that as a rule of thumb, uh, especially if it's happening at the end of a session anyway, let the character die and don't introduce the new one until the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that that was, I think that hit us all that way in that moment of like, oh, okay, I did feel bad,
Yeah.
but now I don't. Like,
Yeah, like the reason that I did that is again one to like have Sven in the game or else fuck Sven Seth start the same fucking letter. Um so that he could like be thinking about the game and what's coming up and what is next week, and like the party was also aware of like what's coming next week, because I think it would be difficult to naturally introduce a new player just dropping him in the next session without pre-gaming the party at all. So that was my intention, but I could see how it backfired pretty severely, especially when like Rob immediately was just like, "Oh no, like fuck this." I was like, "Oh shit." Yeah, so I can see why that didn't land well.
well, it's like, well, you think about the story that you want to tell in a meta sense, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what the story that told was, you guys talked about it and decided Sven was done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's use this opportunity to take him out and bring in this other character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. but the question that I end up with is I don't know how I should have handled it differently, because I do think like if you guys were privy to what happened and what was happening and like the extent of it, then there's no way you guys wouldn't metagame. Even though if metagaming at that point is that really even a negative, maybe not. Um, but like it it's the kind of issue I run into whenever I'm handling things off screen as far as like the world and the NPCs and that kind of stuff. Like I think I go to probably pretty drastic lengths to try and like keep things fair and accurate and power levels and timelines and who knows what and resources, so like the party doesn't feel like I'm just making shit up all over the place all over them, like. And I tried to do my due diligence with that with Sven, but I think the reason it felt different is you guys knew there was like a secret handshake between me and Seth versus like the usual suspension of disbelief of just believing everything Nathan says. Does that make sense?
No,
Oh, okay.
I didn't follow.
Like if like let's say we played that whole session and we just never told you that me and Seth had like a intermediate whatever. And when you guys asked about death rolls, I said, "Oh yeah, he just rolled them and sent them to me in Discord, like as we were playing." You guys would have probably been a lot more receptive to that, right?
Yeah, that's possible.
So like my guess my question or maybe my observation or my quandary, um, is it wasn't so much how it was handled, it was the fact that the players or the people or the party believed that it was being forced.
Maybe not. Maybe not forced. I don't know. I don't think there's gonna be a perfectly satisfying answer to
Mm-hmm.
this. Just because there's uh there's probably a way that Brainoon could have played it there at the very end that left, a feasible uh, uh out, like
Mm-hmm.
a a way within the realm of possibility to keep Sven alive, even if he still ends up departing the group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that, and then there's like one of the things that I kept thinking was, yeah, we're doing this right. We're being prepared. We're being
Mm-hmm.
thorough, because when we rush into a situation is when we get fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we should have rushed. We got fucked
Yeah.
for taking too long.
Yeah.
So
That yeah.
if we're brash and brazen, we get
Mm-hmm.
fucked, and if we're thorough and slow and smooth is fast,
Mm-hmm.
we get boned. So
Yeah, I think that
uh
was one of the things that kind of I wasn't even like aware of going into the session, because like when I sat down to play that day or run the game or whatever, um the image in my head or the energy I was already kind of thinking of, this is the Legolas and Gimli and Arrogant scene. This is the Legolas, Gimli and Arrogant scene. This is us in Lord of the Rings doing the like, and so I'm
yeah.
picturing that scene where they are hauling ass. Aragon won't let them sleep. Gimli is fucking dying. Like they are like nothing is stopping these people because the little ones are in danger, and that's all that matters. So like that's what Nathan was prepared for, and then we got like, no, we got to make sure that we don't get in trouble or more trouble, which is like, again, like that's not a wrong decision, but it was not what I had in my mind, and so I had to like kind of quickly pivot, and I just didn't quite know what to do with it because I hadn't prepared for that. I thought you guys were gonna like get up from unconsciousness and be like, Ben's kind of an asshole, but he's one of us. We gotta go. Like if I was being by goblins, I would want people to be coming after me. Like yeah, so it was. I think that was probably the biggest crack that kind of maybe made the whole thing a little bit iffy, or maybe just not iffy, but like didn't land as well as it could have. Um, Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if there's like a satisfying answer or conclusion, but I am like, if we run into a situation like this down the road, I do want to find a better way of handling it or avoid having some of the negative feelings that I'm sure were there at the end of last session.
Well, and not, it's not a big enough. It's not big enough to be a problem, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's I'm already past it. I think any
Mm-hmm.
negative feelings that they may have had. The only thing I would say is that like, um, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas chasing after the hobbits to rescue them and going without sleep and not even having horses. They're just running on frickin' foot.
Mm-hmm.
Is a great image. But if that's a D&D party that is building levels of exhaustion and now
Mm-hmm.
having to roll all their attacks with disadvantage,
Mm-hmm.
and when you add that meta layer, and metagaming is a dirty word, but there's always the meta layer.
Mm-hmm.
It's always there. That does change the mental math. That does
Mm-hmm.
change the calculus in sometimes in ways that help the game and the story, and sometimes in ways that are kind of clunky.
Yeah.
But um, there's a D&D campaign that ends with a TPK because Aragorn wouldn't let the party get a long rest.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, like again, I've said it, and I hope that you believe me when I do say this. I'm not just saying it to like have it out, but I don't disagree with the decision you guys made. I just feel like it came from the wrong source to like whatever ends up making our game better. I think that's what we kind of missed is like there wasn't a really RP heavy discussion or a character driven discussion of why we need to stop. It was yeah, we might need Thomas to cast one more spell, so we're probably gonna let Sven die because of that. And it's like, like that felt really weird. And I, the
well, it wasn't clear to us that we were like that. I think that's one of the key points here. Like that's one of the cornerstones of this whole thing is that it didn't occur to me that we were going to let Sven die
so
because we were
like
taking too long.
it seems like JC fully knew that, or at least claims that he knew that, which I think
Well,
he,
JC
yeah.
JC thought he was dead as soon as he was taken, according to JC. So he didn't care about being in a
Hmm.
hurry because he assumed he was dead.
Oh, I thought. Oh, from the conversation we had after the session, he said that once we did the long rest, he knew Sven was a goner. Like that was what I got from what he said. Um,
If he knew, if that was the actual chain of events, he did not communicate that at all.
Well, yeah,
In my
I think it
in
was a
my
very
opinion.
meta thing where JC knew that versus Brainoon. The thing I don't understand is throughout the week we did discuss like the party's plan of action, and one of the things you guys brought up and talked about and like we enacted was having the two horses so you guys could ride one, switch, and ride again. And then you guys rode and was like, nah, actually long rest. And it's like, because realistically, like I was trying as hard as I could to hint towards things without outright telling you guys that like you were catching up to them at an increasingly uh overwhelming pace. Like when you guys got to the campsite, the campfire was still smoking. And it's like they can't be far. Like I was trying to be like if you just ride the horses, you'll find them in the field and it's like at that point you're only down a couple spell slots and everyone else is fine. And then you save Sven. Like
We
yeah.
definitely we definitely overestimated the importance of Thomas's spell slots
Mhm.
and of Thomas in general. Uh, but there again, that's hindsight.
Mhm.
It's impossible to know
Mhm.
when that spell slot's going to mean the difference and when it isn't.
Mhm.
I think I don't think I was consciously like sitting here thinking these words, but I sort of also got the impression, like as the group is talking more and more about taking a rest, I the glass was half full for me that way as well, and it's like, oh well, we're really close to them. We have time to take a rest. We'll still catch them.
Mhm. You know,
They're not getting away.
mhm.
We're right on top of them. So let's go at it fresh.
Mhm. I do wanna kind of apologize for a slight that I didn't really like do to you, but I did in my head, so now I feel the need to. Um, when like we were getting near the 10-minute break and you guys had decided to take the long rest, I can't remember like what you said. It was something like, I hope Sven like lures them in, or like, plays his cards right or whatever. Basically, like joking around about him being sexually fluent, whatever the fuck you want to words, right? Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
keeping
Yeah,
don't
yeah. And
know that you're male.
I knew, like, Nathan's sitting here, like, oh, I know, James is just joking around. He's having a good time. We're playing D&D. We're supposed to be here to have fun. Like, this is all fine and dandy. But, like, DM Nathan was like, fuck. That's not the energy we need right now. Because, like, like, again, it's the disconnect of, like, me knowing things you don't. So I can't, like, use that against you. But, like, it's life and death, and we're sitting here joking about, like, oh, I hope he's appealing enough. And it's like, Uh,
The tone wasn't
yeah,
right. The tone wasn't where
yeah,
it was
yeah. Which is
supposed
not
to
your
be.
fault, but I might have been a little upset for you, or upset at you for like half a second. But yeah.
Mhm. Uh, if if there's a note to end on, it's probably that like uh, and I don't know what the answer is. Like I don't know what the best way to do it would have been, but a setting of the tone,
hmm
uh, such that it's we are our acquaintance,
hmm
our acquaintance's life, friend for one of us, life is on the line
hmm
versus um, Gilligan got captured by the natives.
hmm
We have to go get him.
And I do think, to almost even kind of allude to what we were planning on talking about, is like the buck does stop with me. Like no matter what, like it is the DM's duty to set that tone, to establish that energy, to make that clear, to communicate it throughout. And I think I failed at that. I think the first misstep that I kind of just kept stumbling over was like I sat down with one understanding and the party sat down with a different understanding, and that just threw me off. But I think the one nice thing about all of this, not to look back at the last episode as like a fully negative thing, because I don't think it was,
No,
um, is that I think going forward, now it is very clear that death is a possibility. Being kidnapped is not like, oh yeah, they're just gonna rough
like
them up and like,
they
yeah,
got me.
like being out in the wilderness fighting evil creatures, facing the dangers that people were paying you to face is deadly. And I think there's no way of avoiding that now that we all know this.
We've just got to make sure that it doesn't go the other way. And Braynoon, anytime anybody gets captured, is just like, well, he's dead. Let's head back to town and meet the
hmm
new character and pick up our
hmm
next quest.
it's like this is probably shit that I need to try and curb as far as my behavior a little bit, but I Nathan, when he's left to his own devices in the middle of the week between our D&D sessions, is sitting there going like, yeah, heroes, fucking horns blasting in the distance, trumpets playing, they're gonna go charging in there, they're not gonna give a shit, I'll fall on any sword I need to as long as I save Sven. Like, Nathan's sitting here like fucking romanticizing the shit out of everything. And then it's D&D. Like, that very rarely happens, that the heroes or the party is like the overly romanticized hero that people depict. Um, so that was
Oh,
also
especially not for the comic relief that got kidnapped because he had his bone in the NPC. Like,
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think it's just it's very difficult for when I try and like, even though I like play with you guys for a while and I like to believe that I generally know how you all act and the decisions you make, it is difficult for me to not follow the decision that Nathan would make. And Nathan in that situation would be like, "Oh, this would be a great story. I'm going in. Like we're gonna go save him. Like this is it. Like even if it's a fucking TPK, like this is what we do." Um, and that was like I needed to think past that. I think I kind of roadblocked myself a little bit in that regard. So
the burden of perfect knowledge.
well, what like even if you guys did go in and fucking die, like, and just got brutalized, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. There's a point to the end of that.
Let me
That's what
stop you
I,
right
yeah.
there. Anyhow, like I want my characters to live.
Yeah.
I am different from Seth in that way, and I
Mhm.
always will be.
Mhm.
I don't like. We're trying to have an ongoing campaign here.
Yeah.
The dirty secret of Dark Souls is that it's so brutal that death is a joke.
Mhm.
The game isn't actually. It's so dark that it comes back around to being absurd.
Yeah.
So
No. No, no, I think that's more a Nathan thing than like a Nathan trying to impart advice kind of thing. Is I would certainly throw my character in the wood chipper for a good story, because that's what I like more than anything. Like I don't know. So
you like the wood chipper.
it's not that I like the
I
wood
I
chipper,
like stories where the character avoids the wood chipper
but like,
somehow.
well, that's the thing, right? Like we could have told that story of the party rushing and foregoing their own comfort and putting themselves at risk to save the day, right? That's like the traditional heroes bullshit, right? Like that's what you read in the comic books, like. But because we're playing a D&D game where everyone wants to survive and everyone wants to be efficient, it's like, okay, let's stop and have a long rest because we need these spell slots, and then we'll go save the day. And I mean, like, I get why, but I don't know. Yeah, I feel like maybe a better story got passed over for mechanical reasons, which is just kind of eh. Well, that was another thing that I thought that maybe it got lost because it was between two sessions. Is like you saw that on the like with everything stacked against you and a party member down, you guys almost won a fight against these guys, and you had taken out about half their numbers. So potentially being on the advantageous side, even being a spell slot down or a level of exhaustion or whatever, like that combat was not ever alluded to being a potentially difficult fight for you guys, but you guys were treating it as such. And again, maybe I didn't communicate that well enough, but yeah, I think that's also probably one of the reasons that you guys stopped to be as effective as possible.
Well, that has been our raw conversation, our true feelings from our hearts about uh, the death of our party member
The handling of the death of our party member.
and how from beginning to end. So hopefully that was thought provoking and at times entertaining. And again, let us know what you thought.
And like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the things that James usually says.
Yeah, do that. Where I think that's one of the secrets is
Mm.
we've got to get you doing that. We're gonna we're gonna make a song about liking and subscribing.
Yep.
But anyway, let us know. Very curious, and come back next week for more Natural 2.
Until next time, have a good one.